This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome, everybody. Boy, this is a jam-packed, full fall episode of DocNJock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, because finally we can crack open a sweatshirt, we can relax. We are not in the humidity anymore. My goodness, I noticeably went outside for a couple minutes, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not sweating. This is great. We have hit fall. I've decided, as of now, fall is my favorite time of year. Summer was hot. It was brutal. It was sweaty. I was like, my goodness, I couldn't take it anymore. And now, finally, we're in fall. Football's here. College football is going to start this week. We're going to touch on it all. Adam and I went out to Plymouth to check out LIV. It's crazy. The Pistons are making news. Could they reunite with somebody potentially that would cause a stir? Michigan State. The Lions handled their business, and the Tigers, the trip out west has not gone according to plan. We're going to touch on it all. But we woke up on Wednesday morning to the news. Brad Holmes got up early, got his Starbucks, and made a trade. I was a little bit surprised given the veteran experience of Tim Patrick, but when you saw what happened with Isaac TeSlaa and the growth that he showed, 3 straight preseason games with touchdowns, young cat, the team traded up over 30 spots to get him. They've said, here, you're the number 3, and good luck. And he's earned the respect of the offense, the coaching staff. Were you surprised that they let go of some veteran leadership and a veteran who's been in the league? And even though he struggled in training camp, they've moved on, sent Tim Patrick to the Jaguars for a 6th-round pick. And so that means, cuz it's TeSlaa season. What did you make of the news?
I was shocked by it because this was a guy who last season came on really strong at the end of the year, made some big-time catches. He was a solid 3rd wide receiver. The guy performed when you needed him to perform. And look, this was a guy who I was very excited that they were able to go out and get last season. Now, TeSlaa has come out and during preseason has looked incredible. He looks like he's got an incredibly high ceiling, and he looks like he's going to be able to make a bunch of plays. That being said, I kind of feel like that veteran leadership, that experience, you can't really put a price on that. But, I think the mindset, and I think you're seeing it with the way this roster is constructed, the mindset of this team in the front office is, if you can't give us valuable downs, you're not going to make an impact on every damn play. We don't really have a spot for you. We're moving on. There were some surprises with the roster, with the cutdown. I mean, a guy like Dan Skipper, who's a fan favorite, and a guy that they drew up specific plays for, they cut him. They let him loose. So it tells you that if you're not able to come in and you're not able to give those valuable reps, and they don't think your ceiling is high enough, there's not a spot for you on this team. And Dan Campbell was very vocal about feeling that this is the best team that he's had since he's been here. And I think this kind of goes to show it. Tim Patrick was a guy who I had penciled in as my 3rd wide receiver. I had assumed at a certain point in the season, he lose his job to TeSlaa. I figured it would kind of be a revolving door between him and Raymond for that 3rd wideout. And it's just not going to be the case. It does seem like it's TeSlaa time. Raymond's going to obviously have a role in this team. It's going to be primarily special teams, and he'll probably be your 4th wide receiver, or maybe he'll be a gadget guy, but it's TeSlaa time. So they've seen enough and they believe enough in him. And look, you've been at practice. You've seen him working with the ones. I think it was a little bit shocking because we haven't seen TeSlaa work with the ones. We've seen him work with the 2nd and the 3rd string guys, but we really haven't seen him work with Jared Goff. We haven't seen him work with that first team offense. But it sounds as though he fit in. I guess, what are your thoughts on TeSlaa taking over what we're going to deem that 3rd wide receiver spot, and maybe he pushes J-Mo and takes over that 2nd wide receiver spot?
Yeah, he's talented, man. He's sure-handed. I do think that the 3rd wide receiver is somebody that's going to probably get around 30 catches. I think that he's going to be part of the offense. I think he'll be a red zone target. He just balled out. So it's a wild thing to see somebody that we all thought from the time he started catching the ball and getting after it that he's making plays. So the Lions gave him trust. And it goes to show you, cuz Brad Holmes is not messing around. Once you hit 30, the clock is ticking. You got to make plays and you got to showcase when you're on a daily basis, when you're given an opportunity. You got to show some things on tape. It's a merit-based system, and we're just not used to seeing that, to the point where we still felt like Tim Patrick could give something, but they got somebody else. And actually, Tim Patrick told me that, which is really crazy, in that he hinted that his spot was in jeopardy, but not on the roster. He just told me when the final practice, he's like, this is the NFL. You're here today, and you got to constantly prove yourself because they're always bringing in somebody else to try and get after. I thought that was motivating to him because he had a good practice. He had a toe-tap touchdown, but it was against the second and third string units. But he did say he had a slower camp, and he was dealing with stuff. So the Lions felt like, hey, let's give you a different opportunity. We're going to move forward with a younger guy with more talent. And, man, I just thought that Tesla was going to have an opportunity. Clearly, I had asked Dan Campbell at the presser, I said, look, man, he's had a couple good games. Is he going to start taking some reps with the ones? Dan didn't punt it. Dan didn't exactly say that, but he just reiterated that we like him, we trust him. He's a guy that's going to be able to handle more on his plate. And let's go. That's the best part because, look, in the end, maybe some of the lessons from 2023 where Brad Holmes was like, man, I'm going to have some guys develop. He's like, no, this is the NFL. Get after it. Offensive skill positions, you get on the field and you handle business right away. So I'm excited for the opportunity. I think he'll do fine. And I think you can shield him too because he could be the fifth option consistently. Yeah. And all you got to do is beat the third best defensive back on the opponent. You got St. Brown going to get attention, Jamo, Laporta, Gibbs, and Montgomery. Then you sprinkle in a little Tesla here and there. And I thought about trying to get him in our fantasy league, but I couldn't find the right spot to take advantage. Mm-hmm. I thought he was going to come on later in the year. So
I think what you say there is incredibly important. I think he is going to have primetime matchups that are going to really highlight his skill set. He's a big, tall kid. He's fast. He's going to get open because of who he's going against. He's going to outmatch them every step of the way. And I think more specifically, you brought up Brad Holmes, you brought up Dan Campbell. I think when you look at what they did with their roster construction on cutdown day, they only went into it with 50 guys,
right?
Which means they left 3 spots open. And I was surprised that they had 6 wide receivers that they carried over. I was shocked by that. I was like, oh, normally it's 5, but they had 6. But it shows you how intentional they are. They knew what they were doing with Tim Patrick. They knew that they could find a suitor. They went out, found a suitor, and they got a 6th-round pick. That's smart. That's a smart general manager. I bag on Brad Holmes when he loves his own guys, right? When he brings back a guy like a Levi Onwuzurike on a $5 million 1-year deal. I bag on him for those things because I think that's silly. But when you are intentional with what you're doing and you are playing chess and everybody's playing checkers, this was one of those moves where Brad Holmes is playing chess and a lot of the other guys in the league are just playing checkers.
Yeah, it's great to see an organization that understands the value of youth, understands the value that, hey, if you trade up 30 spots, bro, you can't slow cook the guy. You got to serve it right to the people. And the guy showcased that he could high point the ball, he could do some things, and his development will be expedited by matching up against Tyrion Arnold, Meek Robertson, and DJ Reed. He's going to be in practice this week getting after it. So I just think big things ahead. It's great. It's a perfect number 3. Maybe what I would say early, cuz, is the first week or two, because, listen, Dan Campbell likes to set up his team for success. I think he's going to be number 4. I think Khalif Raymond will get some opportunities, and they'll mix and match because he's a veteran and has always done reliable things with Jared Goff. And you'll see Isaac Tesla get in the mix early on, and let's get after it. Let's go. And looking at the picks and looking at the roster cutdown as a whole, it definitely left the impression that there are going to be some holes. The tackle position, you realize, okay, if something happens to Decker or to Penei Sewell, Jamarco Jones, and Manu don't give a lot of people a lot of confidence. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the cornerback spot. They added a new safety for some depth there. But I feel like, okay, the defensive end spot, you only have 3 true defensive ends. Does that mean that there's room for Zadarius Smith? Well, you didn't keep Jackson Meeks. You didn't keep the door open. And we're recording this on the day where teams can pick up other players on the waiver wire. Let's see if Jackson Meeks comes back. If he comes back, then I would expect maybe even further on, maybe even when we're talking, Mr. Zadarius Smith will accept a contract from the Lions so he can play with his nephew. And just knowing how much I love my nephew and how much it's fun to see how cool they can become as they become adolescents. Man, if you get a chance to play sports with one, oh my God, he definitely could have the opportunity to get after it. So we'll see how the roster is constructed. I wasn't as upset with the way it went down because I do think there's obviously some more moves to be made. You realize Pascal's coming back. Miles Frazier is going to miss the first 4 games. So there are a couple guys that potentially you could add and maneuver the roster. So the one, though, cuz, what did you make of Hassanin? Because unfortunately that injury cost him time. And so here's the basic lowdown for those that don't know. If you get an injury settlement, you are officially cut, waived from the team. Now, I don't think anybody's going to pick him up because you then have to sign him and put him on IR, and that takes another spot. That doesn't usually happen. So the Lions, I think, are safe. But he is going to be a free agent until 3 weeks after the end of his injury. When you take a settlement, the team offers you amount of money based on your salary. You take it, and then you got to sit out your whole injury, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is, and then you can't arrive until 3 more weeks after that. So you're not going to see Hassanin until at least October, minimum, if he comes back. There's a chance. I believe the relationship is still open. They wanted to do that instead of keeping him on the IR to return because you're only allowed at so many spots for that. So I wasn't as shocked when I saw it, but definitely it jarred some people. But unfortunately, man, listen, throughout the course of Doc and Jock, we've always said the number one thing, and now the Lions definitely understand it, and they tell you directly, the best ability is availability. You could be riding the high of high. You could be the king of Space Mountain. You tear your pec and you're out the door. It's out of sight, out of mind. And it's so true. These players get anxious. That's why when they talk to us reporters, they just always say, I'm good. And I'm like, bro, you're limping. I'm good. They never say it out loud because the second they say it out loud, the general manager hears and is like, whoop, out the door. We've just now, John Macron is now reporting that 3 people have worked out at the same position as the guy that hurt his leg. And you're like, oh my God, that's just the way of the world. It's cutthroat. It's nasty. And not something I think I could ever handle with knowing that there's always somebody younger, stronger, faster, more crazy than you doing the same thing. It's a wild business, but it's shocking, but it stinks too because I felt like he would have had a nice chance to get after it. But Hassanin, man, injury settlement.
Yeah, I was surprised at how that all played out. I thought for sure this guy was going to get IR'd. This was a guy that they seemed excited about after they drafted him, and he did flash in the little bit of time that he did play in the preseason. I didn't expect him to make a huge contribution this season, but I thought he was going to be a guy that they could develop and he'd be a rotational piece. I didn't really think we'd actually see him come into play until probably sometime after the bye week where he was going to get a much bigger rep set. But all that being said, again, I feel like, because you laid it out, how this is going to play out and how this is supposed to work. I feel like this is Brad Holmes again, playing chess when other people are playing checkers. I think there was a reason this was done, right? So they're not clogging up an IR spot, so they can have those spots for guys like an Aleem McNeil, for different players that they feel they can bring back and are going to make an immediate impact. Hassanin was going to be a guy who was going to give you a very small impact if he made any impact at all. I think settling with him with a waiver injury settlement, I think it allows you to kind of move him off to the side. When he gets healthy, you can then have that conversation and you can say, hey, we'd like to bring you back. And if they bring him back, they could probably bring him back, put him on the practice squad. They're going to have more options to do different things with him. So I like this move. I was shocked by this move. I was very, very surprised by it. What was your take on them only having 3 edge rushers? Like, to me, that blew my mind. I was like, okay, you've got a 50-man roster when they announced their roster at 4:00 on Tuesday. And I was like, okay, so that leaves 3 other spots. So I think they're going to be players either in or they're going to go pick some other guys up. And this way they don't have to cut anybody. It'll make things a little bit more seamless for them. But to come into the year with only 3 guys, and Hutchinson's a big guy, then it's Davenport, and then it's Al-Qadim Muhammad. I was like, okay, nobody else, like no other depth here. I'm not expecting Marcus Davenport to be healthy because he hasn't shown the ability to be healthy. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, you have 2.5 edges right now because Davenport's going to go down at some point. You've watched Awuku, you've watched Agude. You talked about them earlier in the offseason. I thought those were guys who, when they did play, they did give you some valuable reps. These guys aren't at the level of Hutchinson, but I thought these guys could at least make the roster and be rotational pieces, give these guys a win when they needed it, especially Agude, who seemed to be making quite a few plays in the preseason and going through camp. So I was shocked that they only brought 3 edge rushers back. What was your takeaway by that move? To me, it feels incredibly ballsy because it almost seems like you're putting a lot of eggs in possibly a Zadarius Smith basket, and you brought up not keeping his nephew. I don't know if it works out. He's looking for what he deems to be the right spot. This is a guy who has a fake captain's chain, and he has a fake Super Bowl ring with the Lions. So, I mean, he seems like he's all in. But can you go and can you get that contract done, and can you bring him back here, especially after you cut his nephew, who he really wanted to play with? I don't know.
Yeah, because what was weird was the preseason games counted for Dan Campbell, and he didn't like what he saw against Houston and Atlanta. He didn't like what he saw, and it made sense because they didn't play that good. He said it was a concern that when the bright lights were on, some of the guys faded. Guys like Keith Cooper, they faded. So there was a chance to get after it, but he definitely impacted some of those guys and gave him a chance. And unfortunately, it just didn't go their way for certain guys. So that means that they're looking. That means maybe Zadarius, Josh Pascal hopefully can come back, but he's not going to be for the first month or so, or maybe there's some time difference in terms of when he can come back. But I just think that also, too, with the scheme, they're going to bring some pressure from the Sam linebacker spot. They're going to try different things. Mekhi Wingo, the tackle spot, they have a couple of rotational guys that can take a chance. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But yeah, depth at defensive end, it's like there's a high standard, and they finally recognize that, oh man, we didn't meet it. They didn't meet the standard. Do you think Jackson Meeks gets a chance somewhere else? I think a lot of people were like, love it. They like the size of Jackson Meeks being bigger, stronger, but at the same token, I think Lovett can impact the team more right now on special teams. And I do think that they realize, okay, there's not enough mouths to feed, and Jackson Meeks got showcased. And I do think at times the Lions are honest with these players. That's why you don't hear disgruntledness. And what happens is they sometimes will tell players, look, you'll have a chance here to make the team, but if not, we know you're going to get featured, and if your skills showcase, we know you're going to have a job. And I think they tell the players that because Jackson Meeks raised his stock so much, he got a couple $100,000 out of training camp, so he got a nice chunk of change. And I just think that for him, it was a tall hill to climb. Cause first time in 15 years for the Lions, no UDFAs cracked the roster, which is exactly what Brad Holmes said. It's going to be tougher. It's going to be tougher. Dan Campbell said, we got a better team. It's going to be tougher to crack the roster. So I wasn't as concerned. And I told another colleague at Ford Field when they asked me what I thought, I said, tie goes to the draft pick. That's the way it is. And former scouts I've always talked to said the same thing, that draft picks have been invested in. They just are viewed a little bit better. They get more chances. They get more leeways, where if you're new, basically it's like the cousin working for the boss. The cousin can show up 9:05. If you, the outsider, shows up and you just got a raise and you show up 9:06, your ass is getting fired. And that's just the way it is. You ain't the cousin. It's like, listen, Lovett's the cousin. He's the man, and he's going to get after it. So we'll figure it out. So that's just the way I look at it. I'm not terribly concerned. I like the starting rotations, but yeah, there's some areas at depth that I'm concerned about. But you worried about anybody getting signed somewhere else? Cooper, Jackson Meeks. I feel like those are the two guys that maybe get a look somewhere else, but I don't feel like it's going to be that much because teams do so much work. They have no clue about these guys other than what they see against guys that are cut. So Dan gave Brad the ultimate respect. He's like, if Brad says these guys are not getting claimed, they don't get claimed. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, look, I think Jackson Meeks is a guy who could latch on with another team, but I think he ends up back on Detroit's practice squad. I think the one guy who gets picked up, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens while we're recording, it'll be Dan Skipper. I feel like Dan Skipper's got a place in Chicago with Ben Johnson in that offense. Ben knows what he can do. He can go add Dan Skipper, and Dan Skipper knows how that offensive line is supposed to work, and he knows how those plays are supposed to be ran. So I could see Dan Skipper going over there and being a guy who is somewhere on the depth chart, but they have a special role for him with a gadget play here or there, coming in as a tight end reporting and being a guy who can get open or at least draw coverage away so you can run a play to the other side. So I think Dan Skipper gets signed pretty immediately. I think he's the guy who get picked up pretty quickly. Here's a guy who has bothered me since basically they drafted him. Does Broderick Martin end up anywhere, or does he just end up selling cars and insurance someplace?
Yeah, we got to talk about it, man. It stinks. It was not a surprise. Broderick Martin and Hendon Hooker. Look, I'm proud of Detroit Sports Podcast. Maybe it was a little harsh, but from day one of OTAs, June 1st, I said I didn't like what I saw. And I ruffled feathers. And here's what it was, cuz it was not that difficult. Your eyes tell you. And so for me, you and I are kind of in the same boat. We have a level of expectation about what we're seeing. And day one of OTAs, here's what I saw. Hendon was dropping the ball. He couldn't get the receivers in motion quickly enough. He was getting talked to about his tempo. I'm like, what the heck is this? No, that was an evaluation based on not even seeing a throw. That was like, this is remedial type stuff. And this is year 3, second year on the field. Like, wait a minute. This doesn't look right. This doesn't seem right, doesn't feel right. And then the crazy part was an exact replica of a practice botch showed up in a game where on 4th down, he waves number 19 over and it's going so slow, he has to hurry it up and he's forced to call a timeout. The exact same thing happened in practice that I tweeted. I'm like, this doesn't look right. And everybody was like, oh, give him chances. They put him, other reporters were still putting him on their 53-man, their second to last projection. I cut him off 3 projections ago. I'm like, I did because we do a lot of podcasts. I did a podcast and the title of the podcast was Hendon Hooker's time is over. It's over after the 2 turnovers. I mean, you literally, your boss, Dan Campbell, says, our mission is simple, not touchdowns, not flashiness, protect the ball. You go out there, you fumble it twice. What more? Like, sometimes I think people don't stare words right in the face. And I think because I'm such a good psychologist and an active listener, I listen to every word these guys say because it comes true. And Dan Campbell said, what's my expectation? It's not to make highlight plays. It's not to go run for 80 yards. It's protect the ball, look like you run the offense. If you need to throw a 3-yard out, just make the play. And Hendon goes out there and turns the ball over twice and looks horrible. So like I said, the blessing is I'm quick to cut, baby. Slice and dice. Move on. Get better. That's the nature of football. And for Hendon Hooker, I wish him luck, but it feels like another opportunity to find another spot, man. It just didn't work out here. Broderick Martin, man, I don't know, bro. Maybe if someone takes a chance because of that size, they give him another opportunity, but it didn't get after it. So it's unfortunate. It's wild. It didn't happen because it's bad. And it's the wildest thing ever because the 2023 draft, because when you look at it, the most beautiful 4 picks you're ever going to see in a draft, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the next 4 pick are amongst the most difficult and not impactful you're going to see. So literally right down the middle, starting with Hooker, Broderick Martin, Colby Sorsdahl, Antoine Green. If you just got one more guy, oh my God, because it's wild. But yeah, I don't see not much for Broderick Martin. And it goes to show you, I do think the Lions learned from it. They learned, get impact, get guys. Let's keep the projects to a minimum. It's go time. And look, it's a mistake. Brett Holmes is going to have a lot of misses. But let's just be thankful that there are quite a few hits, and there's a big one maybe in this draft with Tate Ratledge and Isaac Tesla, and hopefully you see Tyleik Williams. So what do you make of the 2023 draft? Do you get mad at I think a lot of the fans are like, yeah, the bottom half sucked, but let's focus on the great, impactful first half.
I'm frustrated by it because these are guys who should be giving you meaningful reps and helping to balance out your team and helping you win championships. Broderick Martin has come here and done absolutely nothing. Hendon Hooker should be your backup quarterback. And this guy is going to go to the UFL and he's going to go throw passes there. Broderick Martin got beat out by Pat O'Connor. Like, let that sink in. Pat O'Connor was a guy that they brought in, shook the mothballs out, and were like, hey, can you give us some meaningful reps? And Pat O'Connor has found a place on this team. Broderick Martin, you were drafted to this team. They gave you a spot, and they were like, just develop and get better. And this guy couldn't get out of his own way. When I look at that draft, and I look at the back half of that draft specifically, I'm so frustrated by it because it's so bipolar. It is so Jekyll and Hyde. You've got a top end of the draft, which, great, you hit some home runs. I really feel like Brad Holmes was feeling himself. That back half and was like, screw it. I'm going to take chances. I've already crushed these picks. Let's see what we can get. Maybe we get lucky and we pop a high quality 6th-round pick. Basically going for like the Tom Brady approach, right? Like Tom Brady was kind of a throwaway pick. They drafted him and the guy popped and hit and became arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. I feel like that's what the thought process or the mentality was in that draft. And I think you're right. I think Brad Holmes learned from it. I think he was like, all right, cool. I got to take this a little bit more serious. I got to come correct a little bit, because when we sit there and we criticize Brad Holmes, it is specifically that back end of that draft that we point to a lot. We say it was this pick. It was moving here to grab this guy. It was doing this. It was doing that. It was doing this. And we're like, this is where the glut of a lot of these errors that he has made during the draft process have come from. So I feel like that's a cross he has to bear. And it's one of those things where I do think he learned from it. I think he will get better from it. But it is frustrating to watch these guys who were brought in, supposed to make impactful plays, and now they're going to be used car salesmen. It's just what it is, man. Yeah, honestly, it's just what it is. What did of the defensive back room? You brought up them bringing in a new safety. I was a little bit surprised because it seems like you usually want to go into the year with about 10 DBs, because these guys get hurt all the time. Generally, your defensive backs are a little bit more slight. They play a violent position where they're usually headhunting wide receivers who tend to be anywhere from 5 to 8 inches taller than them, and usually carry anywhere from 10 to 45 pounds more than them. And so they're using their body as missiles to try to knock those wide receivers out. Sometimes they've got to come up in the box and they've got to make hits, and they've got to take on running backs who are much larger than them. So defensive backs usually go down quite a bit. It seems as though the safety position specifically was left pretty thin, and the defensive backs that you have, it's just kind of it to me, right? Like Khalil Dorsey, Rock Ya-Sin, and Avonte Maddox are the guys that you ended up keeping from training camp, and you've had your Khalil Dorsey experience. Rock Ya-Sin was a guy who, when he did come out in the draft, I was high on, and I thought that the Lions should have went and grabbed him. He ended up slipping, and you kind of seen why. He's not been really any great shakes as a pro. And Avonte Maddox is just kind of a second, third string kind of guy. If anything happens to Brian Branch, Kirby Jones, Terrion Arnold, DJ Reed, or Amik Robertson, I just kind of feel like you're in a bit of trouble here, because what you have for your depth, I just don't feel like it's great. And you've kind of seen these guys play. You know what they are. I feel like there's a dramatic drop off from your starters to your depth at defensive back, and I don't feel like you have enough guys. I feel like you need to add at least 2 more guys to that defensive back room.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. It would be a little bit of a concern. And I do think that there's opportunities to continue to grow and see. But also the practice squad will have some of those guys. Strickland, Kennelly, those are guys you can bring up a couple times and you'll be okay. So,
did you like Kennelly?
I do.
He's a guy that you've talked about quite a bit.
I like his where he's at developing on a practice squad. Not ready to contribute. And here's the reason why. There's veterans. Avonte Maddox has been through the league before. Rock Ya-Sin played for the 49ers, has experience. So they got guys that can fill that role. Brian Branch can fill a different role as well. He's very versatile. So I think that it's not a big concern, because they have 2 guys, Lawrence Strickland as well, who battled and really had a chance to make it. But I think they like the fact that he can contribute as well if he's on the practice squad. So I'm not as concerned. But yeah, I do think that, it's going to be clear. You're going to need some more cornerbacks that you draft that are developing and get after it. That's why it stinks that if he didn't work out, Emmanuel Mosley didn't work out. You tried Cam Sutton, didn't work out. Now you got good starters. Like I said, the 22 starters, cause they're ready to go. They'll compete strong week in, week out. It's the depth that's going to be concerning. Do they get lucky if something does happen? Let's just hope they stay healthy and figure it out. So I'm curious to see. And cause now, before we start talking about the Tigers and then a lot of good, interesting side topics, cause it's going to cost the Lions $27 million or more for Brian Branch. I don't know you can keep him. Kyle Hamilton, where Detroit Sports Podcast is now in the trolling game of every team that has players that are signed to similar contracts as the Lions, and Kyle Hamilton greatly topped Kirby Joseph by $4 million. It went from 21 to 25. I was like, Jesus, my first post was, well, still not good as Kirby. And all the Ravens fans are like, you clown, ha, ha, ha. Wait till week 3, ha, ha, ha. So it's a fun time, man, but unbelievable that Brian Branch is he going to command $27 million? Because I know he's great, but that is a lot of money for a guy that doesn't get a lot of interceptions. That's a big hitter. Do you pay Ronnie Lott $27 million a year? A lot of fans at Detroit Podcast have messaged. Let us know, but a lot of them have said, I don't think he's going to get it, but maybe not from Detroit.
That was the problem I had with signing that Kirby Joseph contract
27.
because I feel like Brian Branch is the better defensive back. He's the better safety than Kirby Joseph. I feel like he's more of a utility knife. He can do a ton of things. He can play safety. I think he's a fantastic safety. He can come up, play corner. I think he's a fantastic corner. He can play your nickel, or he can be in your dime package if you need him to be. So like I feel like he is the more valuable commodity.
Shoot.
And I feel like you, as Brad Holmes, have now kind of painted yourself into a weird corner because
he's going to pay.
That's a guy. What's that?
He's going to pay it. I think he's going to pay Hutch.
I almost feel like
I think he pays Hutch, Branch, J-Mo, and maybe you move on from Laporta and Campbell.
See, I don't think you pay J-Mo. I think the whole reason you brought Tesla in was so J-Mo can walk out the door.
Maybe.
Like, would you pay J-Mo? Let's deviate on this conversation for a quick second.
Yeah.
Would you pay J-Mo? Because J-Mo has shown nothing but immaturity through his first 3-4 years in the league. So far this year, he's been good. So through his first 3 years, he's showed nothing but immaturity, has been suspended a few times, has kind of gotten in his own way. Yes. Does he have the ability to be explosive? Yeah. The guy is absolutely amazing when you get the ball in his hands. It's crazy. Yeah. Does he do the little things? Is he willing to block? Yes. Most wide receivers are not. But I just kind of feel like he's one of those dudes. You use him and then you throw him away and you just go get another guy. And I feel like they've already got their other guy. And I feel like that's why Tesla was brought in. And then you can kind of address that third wide receiver either next year in the draft, or you can go find somebody in free agency. I don't think you would make that type of investment.
That makes sense
in a guy like J-Mo just because he hasn't shown the maturity. And I think you can then put that money around, possibly pay a guy like Laporta. I would love to keep Branch. I just feel like he's going to be so expensive. You obviously have to pay Aiden Hutchinson. So it's going to get to a point where you just can't keep all your own guys, which I guess is a good thing, right? You got a good team. But I would try to keep that triumvirate of Hutch, McNeil, Branch together, and I guess Kirby Joseph, because I don't think you can trade him anymore because of how much he makes. But
yeah.
And I would try to sign him specifically. I don't think you sign J-Mo, though.
It's the easiest position to replace. So maybe you say J-Mo's out, maybe Laporta's out, maybe you go try and find another linebacker that's impactful if Campbell doesn't show you what you got. I think you probably are going to keep 2 or 3 and let 2 go, and maybe the 2 are J-Mo and Gibbs, because you have Gibbs for 2 more years after this year. You go 5 years and you move on. You don't make the investment. You try to find replacements. So I do think 2 or 3 are getting big contracts, but you can't pay everybody. You just literally can't. And yeah, look at the price that Brad Holmes is going to have to pay. You still got to do Hutch, J-Mo, Gibbs, Laporta, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch. That's 6 players that all could potentially be north of $20 million. So, and those are all coming up quick. You only get a bump up of $20 million every year. So it's going to be wild. You're going to get a nice bump of restructure money from Jared Goff, but that just kicks the can down the road. So it's going to be tight. And I do think some of these guys in the 22-23 class are going to have it tough to get the fat money. They'll get their fat money, but maybe not from Detroit. So we'll see how the restocking phase goes in the next couple years. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be fun. But yeah, the cost of acquiring first and second round talent at that high of a clip is going to be quite costly. And let's see where Brad Holmes prioritizes. But I do think you're right. Your initial assessment, running back and wide receiver, are positions you can kind of find in the draft, or maybe get a serviceable free agent, but that's not going to cost you the top of the top end. Used running back, not top of the line, just a couple years older. Because my goodness, James Cook just got a new deal. Saquon's deal is up there. It is crazy. Now, what's crazy is because the A's are beating the Tigers. I was shocked that they've gone out west to Sacramento and have struggled. Man, it's always disappointing. It's like a big deal when Scooble goes out there. You're up 3-0, and then you fade out a little bit. You try to watch the rest. You fall asleep. You wake up. It's 8-3. You're like, what? And then you get after it. and lose. So the Lions got a couple. Hey, breaking news real fast. The Lions have claimed defensive tackle Tyler Lacey and defensive end Tyrus Wheat on waivers. So 2 guys made it. So those are 2 additions, and we'll get after it here in just a few minutes. But in the end, what's your surprise level of the Tigers having a little bit of struggles out west?
Again, this kind of goes back to what I feel like this team's been this second half. The moment you start to buy in a little bit, it's like they regress and they take 2 steps back. There's no reason you should be losing these games to the Athletics, and yet you are. And it's one of those things where Tarek Skubal is supposed to go out there and shut things down really, really well. And then it was like all of a sudden the floodgates opened up, and now you're trying to swim upstream with a boat that's got a hole in it. And the Tigers just haven't been able to do it. Again, it goes back to when we talk about our concern level. This adds to that concern level. Just as I'm starting to feel comfortable with things, I look back at this team and I'm like, okay, well, now here we are. Now I'm uncomfortable again. And that's why it leads to that bipolar phase where you're kind of in love with this roster and you're in love with this team, to then turn around and be like, okay, I'm really uncomfortable with this team. I don't like what I'm seeing. I want to make some changes. I want this team to be able to go out and do a couple of things. I need to get production from different guys. Why aren't other guys stepping up? What is going on? Are they pressing? Is there anything AJ Hinch can do? And you start to spiral out of control like I just did. So it is concerning and it is frustrating all at the same point. I think the one saving grace is we're coming up to the end of the season. We've got about a month left. Yes, the Tigers can still slip, but I feel like the Tigers are in a really, really good spot right now. At the moment of us recording, they are the best team in the American League, so they've got that number 1 seed, and we talked about how important that number 1 and number 2 seed are. So I feel like they are in a good spot. All that being said, what I'm seeing doesn't give me a lot of hope for them to make that deep playoff run when they end up getting into the playoffs, because it's been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde again, very similar to Jack Flaherty, who's been very Jekyll and Hyde, and again gets blown up in a start. So it's one of those things where I'm confused on how I should feel about this team. I have a lot of concern, and then I've got a lot of optimism for them, and it's a really, really weird place to be where I'm at right now. What are your thoughts on their struggles with a team like the Athletics, who are one of the dogs in all of baseball, and is a team really and truly the Detroit Tigers should be able to handle? And then they'll match up against a good team, a decent team, a team who's in playoff contention like the Astros, and they'll be able to dog walk them. To me, it's just it is 2 different Tiger teams that you're getting to watch in the same season, and I don't know which one they are. How are you feeling about this, watching this team coming off the heels of having a very competitive week the week prior to now this week where they just can't seem to get a win against the Athletics?
Yeah, it's just, going out west is tough. I would have said that. I would have said that it would have been difficult. Those series are always tough, so it is, one of those, it's like a series loss. You know what I mean? I don't think too much stock in it. What was the most concerning aspect of the series loss that concerns you? I just think you move on, you move forward. It's a series out west. I do think it's just always tough with the critical games you were playing against your division, and then you go out west. It's just, I think, a little bit tougher.
I think Tarek Skubal losing the way he lost is concerning because it shows that he is human. We know that, but we expect him to go out there and just be God and get wins. You know what I'm saying? So him losing the way he lost was just like, man, he can have a bad day. And it's okay, if he has a bad day, who's going to come in and kind of stop and right that ship? And you look at a guy like Jack Flaherty who got blew up over the weekend. It definitely not him. And you look at the bats, you're like, okay, well, can we get some run production? And you're just not, the run production is just not there. You're just not getting it right now. So it's kind of 2 and 3-fold. It's like, if Skubal goes out, gives you a bad game, who's going to be there to pick him up? And your warning bells, your alarms, and all the sirens start going off because you're like, I don't know who that guy is. If we need a number 2 in a playoff series, I don't know who that guy is. And so, okay, well, maybe the bats can pick us up. And then it's like, okay, the bats have kind of dried up a little bit. The offense just isn't really there. can't string together these timely hits to get these runs in. And it's like, okay, this sucks. It's going to be a bit of a struggle. And then they kind of got to nickel and dime their way to a win if they're able to get the win. And I think really and truly, when you look at it, you kind of back out and you look at big picture. I feel like the offense is going to ebb and flow. It's just what baseball is. It's what offense is in baseball. You're going to be hot. You're going to be cold. You're going to be hot. You're going to be cold. It happens a couple of times during the season, probably about 4 times during the season it'll happen to a team. But really and truly, you look at the pitching staff and you expect them to be a constant. Tarek Skubal, 9 out of 10 games, the guy's going to go out there and get you a win. He is constant. After him with this roster, I don't know what you got. I don't trust Jack Flaherty. I've been screaming it all season long. I don't know what he is. There are games where he looks really, really good and you're getting what you paid for. And then there are other games where it just looks like he's taking a check. And then this rotation, I don't know what I'm going to get from Casey Mize. I'm hoping Reese Olson comes back soon. Is it maybe Morton is the guy that they can kind of lean on? Who would you look to be that guy after Tarek Skubal in a playoff series? Tarek Skubal is obviously your number 1. Who's that number 2 on this pitching staff? Who's that guy that you're looking at that is going to help this team get that second win? Because I don't know who it is right now.
Yeah, it's who steps up. I do think Green has stepped up. I think Colt Keith has stepped up. The offense has gotten a little bit better. You just need the pitching staff to kind of catch up. They've been hot or cold. Before we start talking about some of the other topics here on the agenda, are you concerned about everybody else besides Finnegan has had their ups and downs? It's inconsistent. That's what's crazy, is that they have some good starts and then it's followed by some not so great starts.
Yeah, I obviously concerned with the pitching staff, right? It's again kind of goes back to that question I just asked. Like, who's the guy who can come in and kind of be that number 2? If I'm looking at this, I think Casey Mize could give you some innings and could kind of help steady the ship. I do agree that the pitching staff has to somehow figure it out and has to get better, but I just don't know. I kind of feel like this is going to be one of those things where it's going to be series by series, which is a very dangerous way to play as you get into the playoffs. And I feel like at this moment in time, this team needs to be slowly switching into playoff gear and switching into playoff mode. And I look at a guy like a Jack Flaherty, and I just don't know what you're going to get game in, game out from him. I can't pencil him in. It's either boom or it's bust with him. I feel like Casey Mize is a guy that you could pencil him in as your number 2. Melton, maybe. Charlie Morton, maybe. These are guys who can come out and give you some valuable innings and kind of lock down a spot and help you get wins. When you look at the bullpen, after Finnegan, it's been a little bit sketch. Like Tyler Holton is a guy who's been crazy inconsistent. Will Vest, I feel like is solid in his role, but it's like you got to be able to get it to Will Vest so he can close him out to you. So I just feel like what they've got going on right now, it just isn't enough. I feel like this team needs to kind of dig deep, and maybe you're going to have to see AJ Hinch pull out a magic wand and wave it and try to work on matchups, try to put guys in different spots where they're going to be able to win and they're going to be able to leverage those victories. Because Hanley, I'm not sure what you're going to get from him sometimes. Like I said, Will Vest is a guy who I for the most part trust at this point, but Holton, and really after that, it's kind of this conglomerate of guys who they're just guys to me. They're just there. So I feel like the pitching staff after Skubal, it just becomes a lot more questions than there are answers right now.
Understood. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it plays out, and we'll see how we keep it moving with the Tigers. But not a good series. Now, both of us had a chance to get out to LIV. I thought it was different. It's not your grandpa's golf tournament. It was a little bit fun. Definitely, I like the fact that there's no one worried about noise. It's different, but I think you and I both walked away saying, man, we don't understand how the hell this is played, but let's get after it.
Yeah, look, I thought Live was a good experience. I've been highly critical of Live Golf, the whole Saudi funded BS. It was one of those things where my buddy asked me to go, and I was like, "Yeah, we can go check it out." Showing up, I was blown away. I thought it was well organized. I thought it had a very party like atmosphere. I thought it was a lot of fun. The music playing, the guys out there warming up. Just the closeness that you can get to these guys, and even the guys who are playing, they seem to be much more relaxed. There's a much more relaxed, cool vibe. It's just a different atmosphere. That was probably one of the biggest things I took away watching the guys on the putting green when they were warming up. Was I looked at my buddy Scott and I was like, bro, these guys are just so much more relaxed than they are in the PGA. These guys just seem so comfortable out here. Like, they're just here, they're having a good time, they're golfing. They're gonna go out and they're gonna try to win. And if they win, great. If they lose, whatever. Now that could be due to them having millions of dollars already in their pocket. Whereas with the PGA, you've got to go out and you got to win your check. But it was a much more relaxed, much more, I guess, intimate party for golf. The one thing that my buddy Scott said to me that I think really resonates, and I told you this when we were at the draft on Sunday, was if this was backed by anybody else, if this was put on by anybody else, the way they have this set up in the vibe and just kind of the overall atmosphere of LIV Golf would completely annihilate the PGA. It would crush the PGA because it is just a different experience. If you're new into golf, this would be one of those things where you're just like, wow, this is fun. It's not stuffy. It's not stodgy. Everybody's not tight walking around feeling like they can press quarters with their butt cheeks. It's nothing like that. It is completely different. It honestly, LIV Golf feels like what a DCFC game feels like, right? Smoke bombs, loud noise, parties going off, fireworks. You got dudes parachuting. You got music playing on the sides of fairways. You got big speakers, bright colors. It's all of that. I think the one downside to what they do, and it's one thing I did not like. I don't like the shotgun start. It makes it hard to follow who's where. I spent the majority of the time on my phone trying to track different groups of guys that I wanted to go see play. And then it's trying to get around the course to go get to them. I feel like the communication on where dudes are and where guys are starting and playing, I feel like it wasn't very good, and it made for a tough follow, and that kind of dampened that experience. But all that being said, I thought the way it was Kansas City? It was executed was absolutely amazing. I had a blast. I thought with the 100 the LIV Golf experience overall was really, really good. I told the wife, I said, look, next time they come, I was like, we'll take the kids. We'll go. We'll have a good time. It'll be a fun time. It'll be a blast. You were out there on, I believe, Friday. What was your thoughts on your LIV Golf experience when you were there on Friday?
Yeah, you got close to the action. You got to see DeChambeau. I got to see just how crazy the course was. So it was really cool. So I was very impressed with what I saw. I just think it's different. I think that it's more youthful. It is definitely something that the kids can get into. Youthful, party atmosphere, really good time. So I'm impressed. I think that there is legitimate competition that can take place with LIV against the PGA Tour. It's a different vibe. But yeah, they got to clean it up. I just wish they'd do a little bit more traditional type stuff. So I just thought that it was just a little bit confusing. But fun atmosphere. The course was fun. It was a good time. And I really enjoyed myself top to bottom. And I think that it has a legitimacy that's going to take place. It'll be tweaked. And listen, Michigan has a great golf community. So I'm excited about the potential future of golf in Michigan. And if it comes back, I just think it's a good time. It's inexpensive. It's not terrible. So it's really cool. It's really cool. So we'll see how it progresses moving forward. With the Pistons, in or out, if the reports are saying that they've contacted Malik Beasley, should they make a call?
I would say if you can get him at an affordable price, I don't see what the harm in is bringing him back besides what he could do to the Metro Detroit economy by not paying his bills. If you can get him and you can get him on the cheap because I feel like he's got a bit of an uphill way to go because his image has been tarnished. Now he's no longer the center of whatever this probe is, but it sounds like he's still being investigated for other things related to the gambling. So we'll see. He's not out of the clear yet, but he's pretty close to being out of the clear. If you get a reasonable contract, I say bring him in. He's a guy who would be your best shooter on your team, and it's not even close. He's a guy where if he could maybe take some betting counseling, it might help him. I think you sign him to a good deal and you put some dog watchers on him and you make sure he stays between the lines. I don't know why you wouldn't do it. Like I said, unless you're worried about harming the Metro Detroit economy, because this guy's been thrown out of his apartment. This guy has got a tab ran up that's ridiculous with a barber. This guy owes money all over the place. I feel like he owes you money at this moment in time. So I would probably do it. But again, it's got to be for the right price. $10 million, maybe 12. I don't see why not. You know what I'm saying? What about you? Would you bring him in for the right price, or would you just even go balls to the wall? Be like, hey, this guy was going to get, I think it was 3 years, $48 million. Maybe might even be more than that. Maybe it might have been closer to $58 million. Go out and bring him in and basically run it back one more time with this guy? Or do there have to be some guardrails for you to bring him back? Or are you just like, I'm good. I'm good.
No, I don't think you need to bring him back.
We've got guys.
It's tough. I'm good. I think that you spent the money. I think that your character is important. Not to say he's a bad guy, but there's just a lot of smoke around the stuff that he's got going on.
Oh, I don't think he's a good guy, bro. He owes everybody money, and he sounds like a bit of a scumbag.
Yeah,
but
so
he can play basketball.
Yeah, let's just call it what it is and just keep it moving.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Here's the thing. In all of this coverage with the Lions, with LIV, with the Pistons, we do have college football. It's coming up this week. Real quick, I want to get your take on Michigan State. Does Michigan State, Vegas has their average at 5.5 wins this season. Does Michigan State win more than 5.5 games? I think they do. I think you got a quarterback who's coming back, who's familiar with that offensive system. I think you've given your head coach another year to recruit and kind of get a better sense of the lay of the land. I feel like if they win less than 5 games, there's an issue. I feel like there's no reason this team should not be challenging for 7 or 8 games this year. What are your thoughts on Michigan State and their win total?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be right around there, 6 wins. For us, it's just going to be all about Aiden Childs and how he develops. I'm confident that he'll be better than last year. He had a lot of turnovers, but he's got to lead this football team. There's better talent. Jonathan Smith had to step it up to the Big Ten level, but they're so far behind Michigan. It's really sad. It's like Michigan's coming in with people talking about them being college football playoff contenders again. You got Bryce Underwood, but I do think that Childs will perform a little bit better than Underwood, but man, the talent level, when you see all the talk at least about Underwood, I'm curious. I think it's going to be right around 6-7 wins for the Spartans. You just need one signature win. You just need to progress. It's just one of those deals where you need some of the players to step up in the development and the coaching during games. It sucks that Carter's gone, but you do have Nick Marsh is going to be great, the connection there. So we'll see how it progresses. But Michigan's got a lot of hype. I think they don't take a big step back this year.
Yeah, I think for Michigan, Bryce Underwood is going to be the key to this. Vegas has their win total at 8.5. I think maybe they win 7-8 games. This is a high school quarterback coming in. He looks like a man amongst boys. Like, he physically looks gifted, but the game's going to operate at a much quicker speed. It's going to be a bit of a learning curve for him. You're going to have multiple games against Big Ten opponents where your head coach isn't going to be there, and sometimes that can be a little bit jarring and rattling for a young player. Also, I feel like it puts that coaching staff in a bit of a disadvantage where you're taking the leader of that coaching staff away. It puts extra duties on other guys who might not be familiar with those roles. To me, it's just too many different factors. I think this will be a good year for Bryce Underwood. I'm looking for him to not necessarily carry this team, but I'm looking for him to get acclimated to Big Ten football. I think you'll have games where he looks absolutely amazing, and then I think you'll have games where you're like, this is the guy that they're paying all that money to. This is the guy who's making, $1 million plus in his NIL deal. This is what we're doing. So all that being said, I think Michigan wins 7 or 8 games, I would fade the 8.5 and I would take the under on Michigan's 8.5 game wins this season. And look, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think they probably lose to Ohio State. You know, I think the game against Michigan State is going to be much more challenging than it was last year. I don't think they beat Ohio State this year. I think this is going to be one of those seasons where I'd have to look at their schedule. I think they play Penn State. I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge for them because Penn State's got a really good football team. So they've got work to do. It's going to be tough for them. Like I said, 7 or 8 to me, I guess. And then hopefully next season, Bryce Underwood learns, matures, and is able to do more. But again, high school quarterback, man, that's a lot to ask. I know he's a huge recruit. I know he's getting paid a lot of money, but it's just the game is going to move much quicker than I think he's anticipating. And we'll just kind of see what happens. I'm excited for college football, though, man. Comes back for us this weekend. Starts on Friday for Michigan State and Saturday for Michigan.
Make sure you follow Adam on X at AdamRSJROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Like, subscribe, comment. Everywhere that you can find your favorite audio content, you can find Detroit Sports Podcast. It's a fun time, man. It's busy. It's football. It's baseball. It's that time of year. College football is going to start, and let's see how it gets down. And for those that are paying attention, none of the lines that got cut were claimed by any other NFL team. So Jackson Meeks, Keith Cooper, anybody the Lions want can come back. They've added 2 guys, defensive tackle Tyler Lacey and defensive end Tyrus Wheat, both 25, and they sit now at 52 members of the active roster.
So is Darius Smith the next guy who gets brought in?
One left. Let's find out on the next episode of Doc and Jock. Cash Doll, please tell Darius come back. Peace.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.